Hi and welcome back to the DocOva channel. In this video, we're going to have a look at the text and numeric design elements. Let's go. Okay, so in this video, we're just going to look at the form design elements for adding text fields and numeric fields. Open up the, again, all these videos will be in the Element Demos application, which are in the DocOva App Store, so you can add it and follow through or check out exactly what I'm doing in this application on your platform. I'm going to go through navigating through with you on this. So I'm going to go to the forms, and for the text element, we have a form called ftext right here. Again, there's about 80, but I'm going to go through showing you, I'm going to go through this part of it and not try to be too efficient or anything like that, just so that I can show you exactly where these things are, so that you can navigate through to them. So the name of this form is just ftext, and it demonstrates the text design element. Okay, so if I click on the elements on the right hand side here, it's this first element here, the text. It's the workhorse of forms. It's what captures first name, last name, addresses, and all kinds of stuff, right? So one thing that might not be too obvious is what you need that text field to do easily. And so, of course, as you've seen before, all you do is you drag and drop that element onto your field. And in this form, we have different aspects of the field and what it can do for you. Okay, so on the right hand side, as previously talked about, I'm just going to shrink my picture down a little bit here. As we've talked about a little bit before, is when you click on a particular element, you get the properties for that element. So you can see every time I click on one of the fields here, the elements, it shows me on the right hand side the properties for that field or that element. So in this case, I'm just going to go through the properties. There's the field name, there's the role. The role is just convenient that if you wanted to change the role of this field to a number or authors, readers, or names field, that it's easy just to do it right here rather than delete it and go and drag a new one over, because sometimes you drag something and go, oh, I wanted to make this a number, or this should be an authors field or something like that. So it's just easy for that. The type, editable, computed, computer for display, and computer when composed. We're going to go through that when I look at them on the form and the effect that they have. You can align them, so left, center, right aligned. You can set the width of the fields. You can set the max number of characters that can be added. Is required, yes or no. So if you say is required, that means somebody can't save the form that the field is on unless it's filled in. You can go into much more detail in terms of enabling that sort of functionality for your form. Just suffice it to say is the is required here is the basic one, that it can't be empty, for example. So the field can't be empty, right? The default value, so you can provide a default value for a field, whether or not it's multi-value, which I'll show you in the form. Placeholder text. So the placeholder text can be calculated or just text by itself, which basically says, an instruction, like can have help instruction inside. So we'll look at that quickly. Use the placeholder as a label, show you that too. So we'll see what that means. It's just the difference between a label and how you can label your fields on your form. Input translation, so as somebody types something in, whether or not that needs to be translated somehow, like trimmed. So if people have extra spaces that they've put on it and you want to trim those spaces out because you're going to use that data for something and you can't have spaces in it, there's little things like that that can happen. So sometimes, or sometimes a mask that you want to put on. A tab index, so if you want to let people tab from field to field, so it's easy to put, tab and go to the next field, tab to the next field. So you have a tab order just for entry sake, can make it very convenient. And then class and other HTML that's more advanced topics for that. Of course, the style, again, where you can set the color, the font size, choose the font. We have a whole pile of fonts that you can choose from here, some really cool ones. And hide and show, so you can hide and show these fields and so on, based on whether you're editing and stuff like that. So you'll run into the case where, when you're editing a form, you want to put like helper instructions and stuff like that for the user or something. But then when you're actually opening the form and people are reading the form, you don't want to show those helper instructions and stuff like that. So you can do all kinds of things with when to show text or fields, design elements, or anything like that based on formulas or whether you're editing or reading a particular document. And then there's events. So we expose the on click, on change, on focus, on blur, because those are typical type of events that are used with fields. And you can put formula language in here or pure JavaScript. Our formula language make it easy to do a whole pile of things. It's very extensive, a whole bunch of functions. And so it's very convenient to put them in here too. All right, so let's go and have a quick look at what the ftext. So in the Element Demos application, when you open it up, it's the very first form element thing, text, right here. So when you click on it, you typically have one demo record that we've already put in there. But if I just say create ftext, so automatically in the form, when I created this view, it knows that the form name is ftext, and so it automatically puts this ftext in here for create ftext. We'll go through that when we do views. So okay, when I say create, you'll see our form here now, and every field that I had on it. So if I go back to this form in the app builder, you'll see at the top we had element text field, and so in the application you can see element text field and then basic text field. So you see all these fields listed down, and what we'll have, or so what we'll show here, see all these fields down here. This is how it translates out into your app in real time. I'm not, it's just about the functionality of the field right now. We're not trying to make it look pretty at this time in terms of just a demo application. It's just to show you, with fonts and colors and stuff like that, just to show you the functionalities of the fields. And you'll find out that it's not just a text field with other low-code solutions. Ours is much more robust. So the basic text field, so I'm just going to say demo up there to type. Then this next one shows default text. So this is the example of putting in default text in the field so that when you're creating a new document, there's already a default that's in the text field. This is the placeholder text. So in this form, you can see that I have labels listed. So basic text field, basic required text field, and so on, all labeling down the side, and then the field beside it. So, it's like first name, last name, and the field beside it. Or in this case, this is the placeholder text that says add first name. And a lot of times when you click on it, the placeholder text just goes away. But in this particular case, for this field, we're saying I use it as a label too. So when you click on it, it moves that placeholder text up as a label, and you can put your text in. Right, so that's just a contemporary functionality with fields that exists in applications these days. So nice and easy to do that. So there's all kinds of ways where you can lay out your form in terms of labels and text and just the functionality that's built in. And you really don't have to do anything except click on a few things. Basic 10 characters, right? So this is just to limit the number, if you need to limit the max number of characters, which sometimes you have to. This just shows 300 pixel width, so you can make it 5, whatever width you need to make these fields. This is an example of centering the text. This is an example of aligning the text right. By default, it's left. And so sometimes you just need to be able to do that kind of functionality for whatever your application is. And again, it's just a point and click property of the application. This is a multi-value field, not to be confused with selection fields or checkboxes or anything. This is where you can just type in, and when you hit enter, it actually stores this as an array of multiple values. Computed, okay, so computed text, I just put in a formula here. Let's go and have a look at that for a second. So the computed username here, when I click on it, you'll see that I put in a formula, which is, so all of our formula language starts with $$ in front of the name of the formula. So we have a formula called username. So it returns the current user's username. And for the techies out there, you get the fully canonicalized name. So you get the domains and the OUs and so on. But you can get the common name and the abbreviated name and so on very easily. But in this case, I just said $$ username. And that's what's showing up here in the application when I say computed the $$ username. So since I'm the user, it's getting my fully canonicalized username, right? And so this computed field is computed when I compose a form and when I save a form. So it's recomputed at those times. This field here is using the @text@now. So the $$ now, or the $$ now and the $$ text. So the $$ now gives me the date and time right now. And the $$ text changes that date, time value into text so that I can put it into this text field. And so what it's doing is it's just calculating the date and time right now. And it's computed when I'm composing this document with this form, right? So it's different than the computed field, which is getting computed when I compose, and it's getting computed again when I save. Because as you develop applications, you can have values that need to change based on other criteria at the time of save, for example. Which might be, for example, if I give you an idea of a next sequential number, like you might have a document in a process that needs to get the next sequential number. So when you open it, it goes and gets it and says, okay, the next number of this is going to be J51. But in the meantime, somebody else somewhere created a J51. So when you save this, it goes and checks and says, is this the next sequential number anymore? No, it's not. Now it's J52, and you can calculate that here at save time. So there's the computed when composed, the computed, which only happens as the document opens, as I said. Then computed for display. This is a field that is only for display purposes. So when you open up a form, it's just showing, in this case, again, the time and date right now. And it's only for display purposes. It's not saved as a field. The data is not saved in the background, in a record, in the document at all. And then this is a lookup. And in this particular case, it is doing a lookup to a view bringing back a list of values for this field. So let's go and have a look at that one for a second. So if I click on it, let me shrink me down a little bit. So in this particular one, it says lookup value into the text field set up by choosing options in the properties. Okay, so in this particular, I'm saying computed for display. That means it's not being saved. When I save this document, it's just for display purposes. I give it a width of 300, and I said for this entry type, lookup values, right? And so this is with every text field, and then I can say, if I'm going to look up values, how do I want to do it? Do I want to provide my own function, or do I want to do a DB lookup or a DB column? And we'll talk a little bit more about DB lookups and DB columns, but suffice to say, when we have views, then we look up, a DB column looks up a column of values from a view, and a DB lookup. So a DB column looks up the column. A DB lookup looks into the record in a column. So it uses the information in a view as a key for looking up a value on the document in the view. And then you can look it up from other applications. And the view is called lookup category. So if we go back to the element demo database, let's see if we can find I think we have test data here. And in this lookup category test data, see how it's separate documents here, all just test data so that we can demonstrate other functions of DocOva. But what's happening is that field is looking up to this view and looking up to this column and returning these values, blue, green, red, yellow. So if I go back to my form here, you'll see that it's blue, green, red, and yellow. And so you can imagine if you're looking up cities, or you're looking up states or provinces, or departments or people or whatever, you can have that information in a view somewhere and easily take a text field, and we're going to show this with checkboxes and radio buttons, for example, where you can go and look up values, which are like dynamically growing values. But in this particular thing here, I'm saying go and look up the DB column, go to the lookup category view and give me column 1. And if we go here, you can see in this view that we're going to the lookup category view and we're bringing back column 1. So it's that easy in terms of having a view and saying, oh, I need that list of values in here, and you just point and click, choose, there you go. No programming needed or anything, very fast, and you're going to run into using that kind of functionality all the time. Okay, so that's text views. Now let's head into numeric values. So for the techies out there, and I'm going to go through the pain again of finding just so that you know, that's the F number form is what we're going to look at now. So pretty simple form, but we're going to just demonstrate a few things here. So there's this description right up here, right? So a lot of these forms just have a description of what they do. So numeric fields have all the properties of a standard text field plus decimals, right? The numeric field formatting is controlled in the user profile where comma or periods denote the decimal places for thousands, delimiters, for example, okay? So again, if I click on one of these, on the right-hand side, you get all the properties. Its role is a number, a default value, so we're giving a default value of 0 in some cases, and number of decimals is unique to the number field and the formatting, auto or none. So what happens is, with numbers, is that numbers are really just text fields, right? There's no such thing as a number field in a browser or in HTML or anything like that. So we're just controlling the behavior of that text field to be a number. So it makes it easier for you and your applications just to manage it as a numbers field. So let's go over here and say create number. And you'll see that this is just a basic number field. And you just can type a number into it. That's it. This is an example of currency with 2 decimal places that I put on this. And so even if you put 100.505, this will round it to 100.51 because I've specifically said this is a number and it's got 2 decimal places. This is an example of using negative numbers, and so what you can say is, this can have negatives, and if you do, put a negative, and if it is negative, put a negative in front of it. And this here is a comma for thousands. So in this particular case, if you have numbers and decimals, in North America, we typically denote thousands with a comma, and then decimals happen after a decimal point. But in Europe, often they use a decimal point or the period to denote thousands, and the comma to be your decimal point. So the way that you control this is you go into your user profile and your user experience, and you can see the number entry format here. And so what will happen is when you set these things up in DocOver for numbers, the user gets to control the way they want to see it. So DocOver is smart enough to know that, if you said decimals and, your thousands, delimiters, commas, then you can use that. Or if it's going to be your decimal point, that you can choose right here that, and it'll show up that way for each user, so that it's in the background still the same number, but to the users, they get to see it the way they want to see it. Really internationalizes or maybe localizes, however you want to look at it, your application. So not only from a language point of view, but also from a number point of view. All right, so that's all I kind of wanted to touch on in this video. In the next video, we're going to continue on with form design elements. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video and leave any questions or comments below, and we'll try to get to all of them when we can. Thanks for coming out.